A lot of veterans believe their VA rating is finished once that decision letter arrives. They went through the exams, they waited, they got the rating, so now it is done, right? Not exactly. The VA has a re-examination system built into the process. That does not mean the VA is coming after every veteran. That does not mean every review turns into a reduction. And that does not mean you should live scared of your own rating. But there are certain situations that can put your rating back under review. And a lot of veterans do not understand those triggers until a letter shows up in the mail. Today, I am walking through 3 common VA reexamination triggers, what they are, when they can happen, and what you can do to prepare. No scare tactics, no panic, just what veterans deserve to know. Reexamination does not automatically mean reduction. Before we get into the triggers, I want to make something clear. A reexamination is not the same thing as a reduction. Those are two different things. A reexamination means the VA is taking another look at the current severity of a disability. That review can lead to different outcomes: no change, an increase, or in some cases, a proposed reduction. But the reexamination itself is not the reduction. That distinction matters because a lot of veterans hear the word exam or review and immediately assume the worst. I understand why. When you have already fought through the system, waited on the decision, and finally got your rating, the last thing you want is another letter from the VA telling you they want to look again. But the answer is not panic. The answer is preparation. Think of it like an audit. Most audits do not mean someone did something wrong, but you still want to know what triggered it. You still want your paperwork in order. You still want to understand what the reviewer is looking at. That is the frame for this video. This is not about making you afraid of filing, afraid of treatment, or afraid of VA care. This is about helping you walk into the system with your eyes open. Trigger 1: filing a new claim, increase, or TDIU. The first trigger is one veterans run into all the time: filing a new claim, requesting an increase, or applying for TDIU. Here is the part many veterans miss. When you file something new, the VA may review other parts of your file if the evidence raises questions about whether an existing rating still matches your current level of disability. That does not mean every condition automatically gets reopened. That does not mean the VA is personally targeting you, but it does mean your file is being looked at again. And if something in that file suggests material improvement, a change in severity, or a rating that may no longer match the evidence, that issue can become part of the review. This is where veterans get caught off guard. A veteran files for an increase on one condition, maybe a knee, maybe PTSD, maybe migraines, maybe they apply for TDIU because they cannot work. They are focused on the condition they filed for. But while the VA is reviewing the file, they see older treatment notes on another condition. Maybe a note says, symptoms improved. Maybe a provider wrote, condition stable. Maybe range of motion looks better than it did years ago. Maybe a medication is described as working well. And now the veteran is surprised because the VA is asking questions about a condition they were not even thinking about. That is why I say this all the time. Before you file, review your whole file, not just the condition you are focused on, your whole file. Because if the VA opens that record today, you need to have some idea what they are going to see. Here is the practical move. Before you file a new claim, an increase, or TDIU, pull your VA medical records. Use the My Health Event experience on va.gov and review your records, care summaries, and notes. Look for the words that can change the way your file reads: improved, stable, better controlled, no complaints, denies symptoms, normal range of motion, doing well, managing. Those words may not tell the whole truth about your life, but if they are sitting in the record with no context, they can matter. Then ask yourself one question. If the VA reviewed my entire record today, what would they see? Would they see a complete picture, or would they only see a few good days documented in a medical note? That question does not mean you should avoid filing. Sometimes filing is the right move. Sometimes the evidence is strong. Sometimes the rating is clearly too low. Sometimes TDIU is exactly what the veteran needs to pursue, but you should file with awareness, not surprise. And if the VA proposes a reduction, slow down and read the letter carefully. Generally, a proposed reduction gives you time to respond, time to submit evidence, and a window to request a predetermination hearing. But do not guess. Read the actual letter. The deadlines in that letter matter. Trigger 2, the routine, future exam. The second trigger is the routine future exam. A lot of veterans see that word routine and let their guard down. They get a letter. It says they have a scheduled C and P exam. It sounds like maintenance. It sounds like the VA is just checking a box. But a routine future exam is not casual. It is a reexamination. The purpose is to see whether your current rating still matches the current evidence. That means the examiner may be completing a disability benefits questionnaire. They may be measuring symptoms. They may be asking about functional loss. They may be comparing what they see now to what supported the rating before. And if that exam suggests improvement, a proposed reduction can follow. Now, that does not mean a routine future exam automatically leads to a reduction. It does not. Plenty of veterans go through re-exams and keep their rating. Some even get increased when the evidence shows the condition worsened. But the veteran who walks in unprepared is taking unnecessary risk. Here is why veterans get hurt in these exams. They show up without reviewing their records. They have not looked at the DBQ for their condition. They have not thought through their worst days. They do not explain flare-ups. They do not explain what repetitive use does to them. They do not explain what happens after they leave the exam room. And because of years of military conditioning, they say the one thing that has hurt veterans for generations: I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm managing. It is not too bad today. And the examiner writes it down. Not because the examiner knows your whole life, not because the examiner saw your worst day, but because that is what you communicated in the room. That is why you have to prepare. Before a routine future exam, find the DBQ for your condition. Look at what the examiner is actually measuring. If it is a joint condition, understand range of motion, pain, flare-ups, and repeated use over time. If it is migraines, understand frequency, severity, duration, and whether they are prostrating. If it is mental health, understand occupational and social impairment, symptoms, frequency, and functional impact. If it is a respiratory condition, understand testing, medication, and how symptoms affect daily life. The point is not to memorize answers. The point is to stop walking into an exam blind. Prepare a short personal statement before the exam, not a novel, just a clear summary of what your worst days look like, what happens, how often, how bad, what does it stop you from doing, what does it cost you afterward. Bring that with you. Use it to stay grounded, because the exam room is not the place to be tough. It is the place to be accurate. And if the exam goes badly, if the examiner did not measure properly, ignored flare-ups, rushed the exam, or failed to document key information, write down what happened while it is still fresh. Submit a statement explaining what was missed. If you can get a private medical opinion or treatment note that gives a fuller picture, that may help. The mission is simple. Treat a routine future exam like a real C and P exam, because that is what it is. Trigger 3, medical records that show improvement. The third trigger is one veterans often do not think about: your own medical records. Every time you go to a VA appointment, notes are created: primary care notes, mental health notes, physical therapy notes, medication notes, specialty clinic notes. Those records matter because they become part of the story the VA may read later. And if those records repeatedly suggest improvement, stability, better range of motion, reduced symptoms, fewer complaints, or medication control, those notes may be used as evidence if VA later reviews whether your current rating still matches your current disability picture. Notice how I said that. I am not saying some secret computer is personally hunting you. I am saying your records are evidence, and evidence has consequences. Here is the problem: your medical records may not always tell the whole story. Maybe you told your provider, "I am doing better," because that day was better than last week, but you did not explain that you still have 3 bad days every week. Maybe your mental health note says symptoms controlled with medication, but it does not explain the side effects, the isolation, the anger, the sleep problems, or the way your family has adjusted around you. Maybe your physical therapy note says your range of motion improved during therapy, but it does not explain what happens after repeated use, during a flare up, or after walking through a grocery store. Maybe your provider writes stable. Stable does not always mean better. Sometimes stable means the condition is still bad. It just has not changed. But if the note is short, vague, or missing context, it may not tell that full story. That is why you need to read your records, not obsess over them, not live in fear. Just read them. Go into the My Health Event experience on va.gov and review your medical records. Look at your care summaries and notes. If a note says you are improved, but your daily life does not match that, bring it up at the next appointment. Do not attack your provider. Do not go in angry. Just be clear. Doc, I read the note from last visit. It says I am improved. I understand why it says that, but I want to clarify something. I still have bad days. I still miss activities. I still have flare ups. I still have limitations that are not in that note. That is not exaggeration. That is accuracy. You want your records to show the whole picture: good days, bad days, medication effects, flare ups, functional loss, what the condition stops you from doing, what your family sees, what work looks like, what normal life looks like now, because your records are not just medical paperwork, they are part of your evidence trail. Important protection. VIA still has to show real improvement. Now, I want to add something important before we wrap this up. Just because a reexamination happens does not mean VA can automatically reduce you. And just because one note says better does not mean the whole rating should come down. For a reduction, the evidence has to support that the disability actually improved in a way that matters. Not just one good day, not just one rushed exam, not just one note without context. The VA is supposed to look at the record and determine whether the improvement is real and whether it reflects your ability to function under ordinary conditions of life. That matters, especially when a rating has been in place for years. The longer a rating has been stable, the more important it is that VA looks carefully at the full record before making a reduction decision. So do not hear this video and think, I am helpless. You are not helpless. You have rights. You can submit evidence. You can respond. You can request a hearing when the letter gives you that option. You can explain what the exam missed. You can provide current medical records. You can provide lay statements. You can provide a personal statement. You can push back with facts, but you cannot do that well if you ignore the letter, miss the deadline, or wait until the last minute. That is why preparation matters. Here is your mission for the next 48 hours. Pick one of these three and do it today. If you have filed recently or you are thinking about filing, review your whole file, not just the condition you care about right now. Your whole file. If you have a routine future exam scheduled, find the DBQ for your condition and write one paragraph describing your worst day. What happens? How often? How bad? What does it stop you from doing? If you receive ongoing VA care, log into My Health Event on va.gov and review your last 2 or 3 visit notes. Look for whether those notes reflect the full picture. One of those 3. That is the mission, not panic, preparation. The reexamination system is real. It is built into the VA process, and the 3 triggers we covered today are things veterans interact with all the time: filing a new claim, increase, or TDIU, a routine future exam. Medical records that suggest improvement. None of those things mean you should stop filing. None of those things mean you should skip treatment. None of those things mean you should avoid the VA. That would be the wrong message. The right message is this: before you file, review your whole record. Before a routine future exam, prepare like it is your first C and P exam. During ongoing VA care, read your notes and make sure the record tells the full story. Understanding the system does not guarantee an outcome, but not understanding the system can cost veterans ground they already earned. That is the part we are correcting today. Before you file, appeal, request an increase, or respond to a VA letter, get organized first. I have free VA claim resources available at veteranclaimsmadeeasy.com/resources. You can also use the free VA letter translator at veteranclaimsmadeeasy.com/VA-letter-translator if you are trying to understand what a VA letter is actually saying. Start there, get organized, move forward with more clarity. My goal is never to mislead, only to empower you with accurate, honest, and actionable information. Semper Fidelis, and God bless.